The Herald really is one of the best PvP ships in Star Citizen. Because your enemies are so blown away that someone still owns it, they forget to steer their ship. Is the Herald really a dead ship, or is it low-key fun? Honestly, I'm kinda leaning towards low-key fun. I know. You're just sitting there using this thing, trying to find some reason to keep it in your hangar. And yeah, that is part of it. The other half is that the Herald really is, except for the fact that it can't do anything that it's supposed to do in game, it really is a fun ship to fly. Maneuverable, it is not. Fast, it most certainly is. This ship takes off like a rocket. Now, we've talked about it in the past, talking about the fact that it kind of carries a heavier engine than most ships its size, and therefore maybe some adjustments need to be made in terms of fuel. But honestly, the Herald has a lot of design limitations. It is entered through a ladder, and if you play a lot of Star Citizen, you do a lot of bunker missions, you realize fairly quickly that ships that you can only get into with a ladder present a bit of an issue if you're trying to bring loot back or crates and bring that back to your ship, because you can't carry the crate and go up the ladder. But there is a technique that allows you, at least with the Herald, to get past that limitation. There's a little technique involved, a little practice, but yeah, it's good. One of the funnier things about the Herald is that, for a long time we've made fun of it because it's the ship that's had a job for a long time and it can't really do the job. And technically that's still true. Sort of. The Herald, well, really just about any ship, can now kind of do the hacking job a little bit, and can be used on the criminal side, certainly, to make a decent amount of scratch. You're not going to get rich, but you're going to be doing one of the things that you probably want to be doing. But you got to be a little bit sneaky, and you got to be a little bit careful. One of the good things about the Herald is that it is small, which means when you go up to comm arrays, it's not that hard to tuck it into a spot so that the defensive turrets aren't hitting you. You have to remember that comm arrays were changed so that now just arriving on that land doesn't make, arriving in that area doesn't make it so that you gain crime stat instantaneously. Also, shutting down a satellite doesn't get you crime stat anymore. Now, of course, this is a long way from the Herald being able to remotely hack things or hack things via missiles. We were supposed to have those missiles that were data spike missiles that you could fire at something and it would make that actual physical connection that you need, and you could just kind of send the signal through future Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to your missile that had lodged onto the object and then hack in that way. But now, yeah, you can go in, you can use the card, you can use the chip, you can basically hook up to a satellite, shut it off, and then wait the 5 minutes while you have to guard it, and then get out of there. The interesting thing about the Herald is that, yeah, it's not the most maneuverable ship. So if somebody shows up in an Arrow or a Gladius, probably a good time to beat feet, or if you've got the stones for it, try to take them on. Now, I was lucky enough that when I did this, the person who showed up had a bit of a boo-boo moment. But still, we were able to kind of get in there, get it done, and overall earn the reward. How could we stack the deck in our favor even more? Well, now that these missions are out there, and of course there are comm array satellites all over the place in the Stanton system, we can actually look for areas where chances are players are going to be less likely to interfere with us once we get things started. Remember, you only have to keep it down for 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is relatively close to many ships' travel time if they have to come halfway across the system, if they have a fast quantum drive. Now, of course, the Herald does have that minor issue of fuel capacity. It's supposed to be an interstellar information transport, though it only has interplanetary range. That is something that does need to be addressed, and that is something that, of course, we've talked about that in the past, and we'll certainly be talking about that again and again in the future, hoping to get that remedied. But even with the most efficient quantum drive, which I believe is the Lightfire, you're still looking at 100 to 120 probably million kilometers of range. I can't remember what it was. I looked it up when I was building the ship a while ago, but I believe it was somewhere in there, 100 and 120. I believe it was the Lightfire or the Sparkfire, one of those quantum drives. But yeah, I mean, you can throw it together on Urkel and see for yourself. It's not the fastest ship, but it certainly allows you to kind of get around the system and get to different comm arrays, and certainly has enough room for a whole crap ton of hacking chips in its cargo. And of course, on your person, you can carry a backpack, probably put 100 of them in there or more. So you could go out and you could, go and do some hacking and have some fun with it. It's not something that I would say immediately is gameplay rewarding. There really is no hacking mini game at this point. It's more or less just, oh, there's an alert. You shouldn't be doing this. Do you wish to continue? Yes, I do. And that's kind of the hacking mini game, though we do know that is changing in the not too distant future. CIG has kind of showed us some prototypes of this, or the visual prototypes. The gameplay itself, I believe, is still up in the air. But if you kind of scout the system, if you kind of know where people tend to congregate, where they tend to hang out, you can probably focus on areas where players are less likely to interfere with you, areas that players are much less likely to congregate in. Crusader is obviously a very popular place for bounty hunters, right? Because everything is right nearby. And you can buy guns at Grimhex, you can buy guns at a lot of places, whereas Lorville, not so much. New Babbage, yeah, but kind of popular, kind of crowded. And ArcCorp, kind of the worst landing area you could possibly use. So that, I kind of feel like it would be better to just kind of take the stretch and work out of one of the space stations or Grimhex myself and just kind of make that first long trip and then hang around areas where players are less likely to congregate. But overall, you can somewhat do the Herald's mission now. It's just not ideal, right? Is it worth keeping the ship? Not really, because in the eyes of most players, I'm speaking strictly utilitarian-wise, there really isn't a facility that the Herald provides that 100 other ships don't provide, right? Almost literally. But if you do own a Herald, like myself, and you're holding on to it, and you want to keep it for that day when this becomes possible, it's kind of a way to get some fulfillment out of it. And of course, to kind of thumb your nose at the authorities. I'm glad that the trespassing was removed. I'm glad that you no longer gain crime stat for committing a crime at a comm array that has already been shut down. I would like to see it altered a little bit. I would like to see that, you know, one of the things that as you're shutting it down, you kind of have to go into the computer in the future and erase the logs that you were there in the first place. That little added extra touch would be kind of awesome. But overall, I mean, it's still not the ship that it's supposed to be. It still isn't. But it's still possible to kind of just have a chill gameplay session. And when you're kind of playing around like this, especially with the Herald, you know, one of the big things that a lot of people don't always fully grasp is the fact that part of being a successful criminal is not getting caught. Now, of course, there are the kind of criminals in the Star Citizen universe who want to go out and confront, and they want to clash and conquer. Whereas I think that long term, probably one of the more fulfilling things, at least, yeah, but then I mean, for me, it's obvious. I mean, I used to play a rogue. I love stealth classes in games. I love to slip by unnoticed. I love to slip by unseen. And this is a small slice, a small percentage of that. So for me, I find a little fulfillment out of this. It's at the same time, it's a little heartening, but at the same time, it's a little depressing because, yeah, I bought this ship in 2014. We're now in 2022. It still doesn't work. Right? But who knows? Hope springs eternal. And you know what? Hey, maybe one day they'll go back to being asymmetrical, right? Since that's now kind of their thing.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.